So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the live stream. Thank you so much for turning up. It's whoops, I forgot my hat. How can I be?
You did.
How is that possible? A wardrobe malfunction. Okay. I hope all of you can hear me very well on the stream. Thanks for coming on the stream tonight. I'm here with Marc. Marc is a fellow YouTuber. He talks about Brexit and many other issues, but I prefer Marc to introduce himself. Just before we begin, I just want to tell you, everyone, that we're going to look at some questions that have been compiled by both myself and Marc's channel, and of course on Discord. All of these super chats tonight are going to go to a charity. I'm going to ask Marc to introduce the charity in a moment. So loud and clear, that's great. So Marc, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, about your channel, and also about the charity?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Some of you already know me, either from my channel or from being in the comments on live streams here at Max's channel regularly already. I'm doing YouTube for 1.5 years, so many complained that I haven't done that before the 2016 referendum, but I came to this quite late. I'm in Germany, and I'm bringing videos from a German point of view, especially on Brexit, on my bigger channel where we are here today, and on some global news, European news. And I do this in my spare time, so that's not my main job, but that's a hobby and one I like. When Max asked me to join him today, and I'm really grateful for that, he told me that we can give the money for the super chats and so on for a charity, and he asked me if I know one. And we are in a pandemic at the moment, and we have a really great charity here in my district, where I live, and that's called Funky. It's Europe's largest inclusive dance ensemble, and they are trying to promote inclusive cooperation in the field of dance, and they really want to show that everyone can work together and have fun together, and that's a really great thing. And they usually make money with their performances for their work, and that fell away all this year because of the pandemic, and so I'm glad we can help them a little bit tonight.
So that's great. So we the moderators will post a link to the charity itself. So if you'd like to send a direct donation, or if you want to send a super chat, that'd be greatly appreciated. We'll try and read out the super chats towards the end of the stream if possible. So let's jump into the main topic. So we're going to cover a number of different topics tonight. We're going to look at Scottish independence, UBI, Brexit, of course, personal and our own channels in the EU and Germany, the US, the voting systems, and then if we have a chance at the end, we'll look at the super chats. So let's look at the first question. We have the first question from Super. Says, this one is for me actually. Says, how could the independence parties communicate the benefits of independence for Scotland so as to reassure people it won't turn into a shambles like Brexit has? So how can the independence... So I think one aspect would be to get away from this problem, and I think it's been not so much a problem for the independence parties, but more for the SNP. I don't see it as a problem, but the general public see it as a problem. The idea that once in a generation, so this issue of once in a generation, it was something that was, I think, was said offhand by a former leader of the SNP, and it's been always trotted out as an excuse against Scottish independence. I think they need to say, look, this is not something that the independence parties support. This was something said in the past. Let's move on. But communication, I think, at the moment, I think there is a reasonably good communication method. There are many YouTube channels. There are many small grassroots movements at the moment delivering information about independence in Scotland. So I think at the moment the approach is much more grassroots, while if you look at Brexit, it was much more a top-down approach. People at the top decided this is the information people at the bottom are going to receive about Brexit. I think the independence movement is the opposite. It's more a bottom-up approach. Okay, I hope that was a reasonable answer. Let's move on to the next one. So this one is for you, Marc.
Okay.
Okay. If you'd like to read it, I don't know if you can see it on your screen.
Just give me a second. No, something just went wrong on my side.
Okay, so I'll read it, no problem. So Gracock says, if Scotland gains independence, what will it need to do to rejoin the EU, or at least the EEA?
Okay, in this case, I would leave out the EEA because all the discussions in Scotland are about rejoining the EU. Although, unfortunately, I must say it's not really rejoining. It's joining for the first time as a nation because Scotland never had a seat at the table. So they would have to go through the normal application process. With the application, then the 27 have to allow the Commission to start the negotiations with Scotland. And then they will have to go through 35 protocols. And there's the good news for Scotland. They have to go through all of this, but as long as the UK in the meantime doesn't diverge too far from the European Union and the standards, it will be quite fast to go through all these 35 protocols. It's about rule of law, it's about economics, it's about social standards and stuff like that. And if it's still aligned with the EU, you can work through that quite quickly because you can work on them in parallel with countries like North Macedonia at the moment, who are an applicant for the EU. Right now, they are working on 2 of these protocols parallel because they are that far in this development to go there. But I can imagine with Scotland, you can work through 35 at the same time. So that would be quicker. But they would have to go through the normal application process. And in the end, all the 27...
But is there not an advantage with having already been a member in a sense?
No, because as I said, Scotland never was a member as a nation. That's part one. And the second is, even if the UK would rejoin or would want to rejoin, they would have to go that process too, because there was some time in between. And a lot of things could have changed. And they are applying. There is no, that's Article 49. Everybody knows Article 50 with leaving, but Article 49 is for applying. There is no chapter in this article about rejoining. It's only about joining for the first time. So the same rules apply to everyone. The advantage for Scotland is, I'm sure it would be much faster than with new applicants like at the moment Albania or North Macedonia.
Okay, that's good. Let's move on. This question is for both of us from Greg Mulqueen. Says, what will be the long-term effects on the island of Ireland post-Brexit? Are we looking at reunification or Northern Ireland becoming independent in its own right? Can Northern Ireland and the Republic work together under the current deal? So that's for both of us. So actually, I uploaded a video today. I don't know if many people had seen it, but it was about Northern Ireland, and it was the minister, I think it was the the European minister in Ireland, and he was talking about reunification and how the Good Friday Agreement, in a sense, is facilitating that. There is much more cooperation between the Republic and the North. And the issue that they were actually talking about today was the Erasmus scheme, which is now going to be funded by the Irish government. So I see a lot more cooperation going forward. The long-term effects on the island, if there is reunification. So there are issues of cost. No offense to the people of Northern Ireland, but Northern Ireland, for the British government, was seen somewhat as leakage. It's, they pump money in, and it's a cost for the British Exchequer. They don't see it as an asset. And I think reunification with the Republic would be costly. And I think maybe Marc can add to that in the sense of, the experience in Germany where East and West were reunified, and the feeling of the people as well. Or Northern Ireland becoming independent, I don't really see that happening, especially the economy in Northern Ireland is deeply dependent on either the UK or the Republic. So I think independent Northern Ireland isn't really feasible. Marc, do you want to answer that as well?
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion. What about Northern Ireland independence? That wouldn't make any sense to me. If there's a change, they will have a reunification with Ireland. In this case, it would be very different from the German reunification, because the problems that were there before the Good Friday Agreement, and that are in some sense still there today, would just shift to the other side. Because now in Northern Ireland, one side is unhappy because they are with the UK. In case of reunification, there would be one side that's unhappy because they're reunified with the Republic of Ireland. So in Germany, that was different. They all were Germans and not Irish and English, or the religious part we leave out here. And they were happy at that time. Of course, it's very costly. We know what that means. But I'm sure Ireland will be able to deal with that, especially because the what is it in English? GDR?
Or GDP? No.
German Democratic Republic, GDR.
Sorry, yeah, GDR.
They were completely broke. Everything, the factories and stuff like this was all totally outdated. And I'm quite sure that's not the case in Northern Ireland. And so that will be much easier in the economic sense than the reunification in Germany. And about the cooperation, and the part of the question with the cooperation, the last deal wasn't the decisive factor. The withdrawal agreement was the decisive factor, that they can still cooperate very closely with Northern Ireland, being still a bit in the single market and the customs union as well with the EU and stuff like that. And they have a lot of regulations anyway for Northern Ireland, like what we will talk about later probably as well, with these decisions if they want to stay with the UK or go to the Republic of Ireland. That is totally different than the situation we had in Germany.
Okay, good. Let's move on. We have a question from Michael MacLeod. Asked both of us, Boris Johnson is trying to avoid another Scottish referendum until 2055. Is the 7-year period between border polls in Northern Ireland set out in the Good Friday Agreement and signed by the UK a good basis for comparison as to how often Scottish independence referendums should be held? Do you want to take that one first, Marc? Or
I can do that. But I think the comparison will not be the problem in the end. It will be a legal problem in the end, and I think the courts will be involved. And there they will not discuss Northern Ireland. They will discuss Scotland as a nation. They joined the UK via an agreement. And does that agreement mean that we can do whatever we like regarding our own fate in the future, and not comparing that to Northern Ireland? The 7 years is one thing. When you have referendums, we in Germany don't have them on federal level. We only have them on local levels. There are always time gaps after which you are allowed to do that again. In the local referendums here where I live, you can do that again after 2 years. And so I'm quite sure every court will say you don't have to wait 55 years or whatever to do that again.
Yes, I think comparing the two doesn't make a lot of sense, because Northern Ireland and Scotland are in completely different scenarios. But set out in the Good Friday Agreement, maybe in a sense it works for Northern Ireland, but I don't see it working for Scotland. And then because of Brexit, I think Brexit completely changed the approach to how we deal with referendums. I'm not a fan of referendums because, it depends on the referendum. I think there's a huge amount of work that needs to be done beforehand. For example, when it comes to the Brexit referendum, I'm extremely critical of it because there was no independent body set up to explain what the European Union represented to the British people. There was no information about what was going to happen. I think that was a huge problem with the Brexit referendum. And then for me, the idea that in the UK, a referendum for the people, for them to decide the future of the UK, this is a job for Parliament. It's not a job for the ordinary people. They don't understand, and I mean this in no offensive way, just they don't understand the role of Europe, the role of the UK in the European Union. So I'm not a fan of referendums in that way.
Yeah, can I add something?
Yeah, of course.
No offense to the Swiss, but we don't have federal referendums for a good reason, because they are very complex questions, and Brexit was one of them too. And for everyone just to answer them by just say yes or no, without all the proper information. Those who wrote our constitution knew why they were doing this, because they knew in this case it's always populism will come in, and they wrote our constitution right after the time with the Nazis. So they knew what they were writing about. And I don't even believe that in many cases I would understand what they are asking me in a case of a referendum. And so I really don't believe that the majority of people voting does even understand what they are voting for.
Yes. Like it's okay, as you said, if it's on a local level. Do you want the rubbish collected on a Tuesday instead of a Wednesday? Okay, that's okay. It doesn't have a huge impact on your life. But should we leave a community, a union that we've been part of for almost 50 years and not know what comes after? I think it's too big of a question to ask the general public.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Michael has another question. It's if the 2021 Scottish elections return a majority for independence, but then Westminster continues to repress it, should the EU accept a unilateral declaration of independence of Scotland? So maybe you answered the first one. You answered first before. I'll go with this one. I think it's problematic getting the European Union involved in internal affairs of now. It's a problem getting involved in internal affairs of member states, but with the UK no longer a member of the European Union, I think it's going to create problems with the European Union getting involved. Now, if Westminster represses it, I would be on the side of the European Union getting involved, but I don't think the European Union want to get involved in the internal politics of a member state or a non-member state. So I think that it's going to create a lot of problems. Now, I think the Scottish could petition the European Union for help, and maybe individual member states could do something about it. But the European Union as a whole, I don't think would be getting involved. What do you think about that, Marc?
Well, first of all, I agree that the European Union will not do it because it just needs one member state to veto that and it's over. And I'm quite sure the UK would get one member state to veto that one. But on the other hand, if the member states will do that, depends really on what happened before. If Scotland, for example, went to the Supreme Court, they told them, yes, you can have your referendum, then the referendum goes pro-leave. And then the Scottish Assembly, with a big majority, says we are leaving and recognizes that referendum. And then they go through the complete process, and it's all legal in the eyes of the UK Supreme Court as well. Then I'm quite sure many member states will recognize them as independent because everything was legal what they did, and they have been a nation before. That's another point. Many always now bring other regions and islands and whatever into the game, just to dismiss the Scottish independence. But all these cases are totally different. So Scotland is a very unique case because they are a nation, they were an independent nation before. And so if they go through the whole legal process in a way that the United Nations would have nothing to complain about, and the EU and so on, the EU won't recognize them, I guess, because at least one will veto it. But I'm quite sure many member states would.
Yeah, and as you said, if the UN is behind it, is backing it, it could be a huge momentum to help them eventually put pressure on or resist London or Westminster. Okay, let's move on. We have a question from Greg Shields for Marc. Instead of talking of independence for Scotland and Northern Ireland, why isn't there a discussion ongoing about the federal political structure for the UK like it exists in Germany?
Well, to be honest, that's a question up for the people in the UK. Why don't they talk about this? Why are the people in Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales especially not talking about this? Because devolution and federalism are really still two completely different things, because federalism means more power for Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales. But I haven't heard many people talk about this. But it's really up to the people. We can't from the outside say, yeah, why don't you do this? So that's a very short answer to that one.
Can you give it maybe a little bit of an explanation between the difference between federalism, like in Germany, and devolution as it is in Scotland? What sort of powers are different that you know of?
The competences in Germany are almost, we still have a small problem, but almost completely split between the federal government and the federal states. There are a lot of areas where the federal government cannot say anything. That's why Angela Merkel, for example, today could only invite the prime ministers of the states to discuss the next lockdown and stuff like this, what we had today. But the federal government can't do anything there. The decision is in the states. The whole pandemic, how they deal with it, is in the competences of the states. And the federal government can give money, they can give advice, they can ask them to join together to have one line of action, but they can't force them. That's just one example. The other thing is police is a completely state thing. Every state has its own police. The federal government has its own police for the outer borders, which we don't need much today anymore because of Schengen. But the federal government can't say anything about police. They can't even get themselves involved in that area. And there are many other areas where it's split. We had a reform a few years ago where they tried to completely split it, but we still have a few little things where they have shared competences, and we still want to get rid of that. So it's really split. And that's, by the way, the model that I can imagine for the EU in the future. That's what I'm talking about this in my videos all the time. When I say federalism would be a possible thing, as long as you keep the competences really split up between all these entities.
Yeah, it would be something I'd be very supportive of for the European Union in the future. I think we need to work closer together, but respecting individual states. Okay, let's move on. So the next question is for both of us. It's from Pfeifferka. So it's the SNP have proposed UBI for Scottish citizens. Do you see this ever getting implemented in the rest of the UK? Would Labour support this under a Starmer premiership? So, if anyone's new to the stream here, they would probably didn't know that I'm a huge fan of UBI, and I try to avoid talking about it on every stream. But so the SNP have proposed a UBI for Scottish citizens. So, do you ever see it being implemented in the UK? I don't. I'm a fan of it, but I don't see it implemented because I think there's a huge amount of ignorance surrounding it. And on many occasions, when it is actually implemented on a test level, when it's just on a trial basis, it fails. Because it's not universal. It fails because the money provided in the trial is not sufficient. Now, there have been some examples of it working much better. For example, in South Korea, they have... now, it's not a proper UBI, but what they do is they give people a credit card with I think it's about $300 on the credit card to spend every month, but they are only able to spend it in the local area, which is a good thing, but it's not a real UBI. A real UBI, for people who are not familiar, a universal basic income, would be something like €1,000 per month or £1,000 per month, or some basic level that's given to everyone, irrespective of their income level, be it. In that sense, it's universal. It's not means tested. So, it's not going to say, well, you earn too much money or you don't earn enough. It's for everyone. And it takes away the stigma of, for example, welfare. And it allows people to live a life with dignity, I believe. And you spend the money. The problem with during a crisis is that many times governments pump money into financial institutions or into banks, and this money doesn't trickle down. It stays there. Banks don't spend the money. They invest it. They buy shares. They reinvest it in the bank. We need to give money to ordinary people. Ordinary people go out. They buy a coffee. They repair their car. They purchase things in the local area. They help the local economy. So that's why I'm a huge advocate for UBI. I'm not going to spend this entire stream on UBI. Maybe sometime in the future we can do a UBI stream because there's a lot to talk about. Would Starmer do it? I don't see. It's not something in his manifesto at the moment. I don't think so. unfortunately, I think a problem on the left is that there is this fear of UBI that it's going to replace welfare. And many on the left feel that welfare is better, that we should reinvest in welfare programs, while UBI would eliminate welfare. And I think many people are afraid of that. And I understand why many on the left don't want to go down the road of UBI. They would prefer to reinvest in welfare, but UBI could replace welfare. But I understand that it hasn't been fully tested, so we can't fully understand its benefits. But we can't continue the way we're going. Anyway, I'll let Marc answer a little bit on this as well.
Yeah. First of all, at the moment, there are some tests that just finished and some tests that are still coming. So at the moment, I don't see UBI being introduced anywhere. But there was a test in Finland that was quite successful, but the amount of money they gave to the people was far too low. In Germany, from next year on, an association is doing a test with 1,000 people. They collected money for this, and they get 1,200 euros. That's double the amount the Finnish got, because 1,200 is the amount they say you need for living as a single in Germany. And that's why they want to try that one.
Can I just ask, sorry, I don't know if you're familiar, but is it for a trial period? Or because I think this is a problem with UBI as well, with the trials, that if I say we're going to do it for 6 months, then people's approach to it will be different to if they say we're going to give you this 1,200 euros forever. So you could say, well, I could start a business, or I could quit my job, or I could work fewer hours. Sorry, I interrupted you. I'll let you continue.
Well, of course, when an association is doing that, it's not forever. They have to collect the money to do that. But there are different models in discussions in Germany to do that. And one of the goals is to get rid of welfare. There you are correct, because that would get rid of a lot of bureaucracy. And of course, the way the people feel are different. But what you earn yourself, there will be higher taxes on it in most of these models as well. So, but in any way, we will have to wait how all these tests work, how the calculations are, how you finance it. It's not what some people who don't like UBI say is everybody will just stop working. I will not stop working if we have UBI. I would die from boredom if I do. But we have to finance it. So that then needs a lot of tests, a lot of calculations. I would definitely not see that invented in the UK with the Tory government. And you're right, before we have a lot of tests on this, I don't see Labour doing that as well. I don't see it in this decade anywhere, anyway.
Unfortunately. Unless I was hoping that the pandemic would usher it in, but I don't think that's going to be the case now. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to Brexit. So we have our first question from Gareth on Brexit. Is independence for Wales now a realistic idea, considering it voted for Brexit and now the Welsh government? It voted for Brexit and how the Welsh government dealt with COVID. So, is independence a realistic opportunity or a realistic idea for the Welsh government? Do you want to start with that one, Marc?
Well, let's say this way: it's more realistic than it was before. Because now more people in Wales are pro-independence, or many more people than before, but it's still only 25%, if I recall the last polls right. And that's not so much that I would say in the near future somebody will try to get Wales independent. And the dealing with the COVID pandemic will more mean that probably Labour will do better in the next elections in Wales. But I don't think that independence will be the result of that.
Yeah, I think although there is the idea that if Scotland becomes independent, that would help the Welsh movement to become, it would give it momentum. But I think it's important to differentiate between the powers that Scotland has and the powers that Wales have, and the possibility of Wales becoming independent is much reduced in respect to Scotland. And I agree that the approach to COVID has been welcomed in the UK, the approach that the Welsh government have had. and because it's the leader of the First Minister in Wales is from the Labour Party, he's gaining a lot of support from the public, so I think he's going to do well in the next elections. So yes, but the idea of Wales becoming independent would be much further down the road after Scotland. But I wouldn't rule it out.
And Northern Ireland.
And Northern Ireland. Okay. Eric has this question for both of us. Both of you have regularly been predicting bad consequences for Brexit. Now that it has happened, do you already see some consequences unfold? Do you expect more consequences? Yeah, so I think, well, one of the things I was talking about on the channel in the past was the chaos at Dover. Now, I have been criticized surrounding the predictions that we made, but many of these predictions didn't come true yet. That's the problem. Because companies understood that there was going to be chaos at the border. So what did they do? They prepared for that. So they stockpiled before the end of the transition period. So they mitigated some of the damage that they were expecting to see on at the border in Dover. So that was some of the things that were predicted. Do you expect more? Well, it's going to be. See, I think a big problem with Brexit is that people think it's going to be something temporary. It's not. It's going to be long term. It's permanent in a sense until at least the UK rejoin the customs union. So it's not a case of just the government throwing money at the problem and fixing it. These restrictions are going to remain. And you're going to see ports like Holyhead that deal directly with Ireland or some of the smaller ports. They're going to get smaller because the traffic moving in and out of them will gradually disappear. It's not going to be something overnight. It's not going to be something maybe even this year. But you can even see it with the City of London, how more and more of the businesses, the financial institutions are moving out. They don't all move out overnight. They plan ahead, but they are slowly shifting. So I think over the next number of years, you're going to see the real consequences of Brexit. Marc, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, there's one point. I'm quite sure many of you haven't read the whole deal yet, the 1,298 pages. There's one reason in this deal why we haven't seen many consequences, because not many people know this, but there are a lot of parts in the annexes of the deal where it says transition period. A lot of things didn't happen on January 1st because there are, for many steps in this deal, there are transition periods for the single parts of it. And many things are not even active now. They are the same as before and not the new regulations from the deal. And so, of course, we will see the consequences later. The part with the data protection, for example, there's a transition period in it. In a lot of product review stuff, there are transition periods. They don't need all the certificates now. They will need in between 3 and 6 months for a lot of products from the UK. And there, even for some services, are transition periods in. So you don't see all the consequences now. And the long-term consequences, all experts predicted what the GDP with a minus 5% or what of the growth, that will be something we see in the long run, and I'm quite sure we will see that.
Actually, it's not a question asked here, but when do you see the UK recovering from Brexit, or will they ever recover from Brexit?
I don't think so, because there's just one thing. You can never prove that, but the predictions from the experts for economic growth usually are quite good when they calculate in the circumstances, and they really know the circumstances now well, what's happening since the deal is there. They would be better off on the long run if they have stayed in the EU, especially in a world like this where we are dealing with the big blocs like China, Russia, the USA. What can a small country do? And compared to the rest of the world, the UK is a small country. In one of my videos, I quoted, I forgot who I quote, but there was a very good quote, because he said there are two kinds of countries in the European Union. Those who are small and know they are small, and those who haven't realized they are small. because
a
we
good
are,
point,
even Germany is a small country compared to the global level. And that's why we try to work together.
A very good point. Okay, our next question is from DS. For both of us, as both of you are not British, do you feel your opinion is less emotionally attached to the crux of Brexit? It seems that the British are so emotional when getting into the crux of Brexit. Do you want to start with that one, Mark?
Okay,
you're not British, are you?
No, I'm not. I'm not British. I have been living in the UK for a couple of years, and some people always make assumptions, so that's why I'm used to questions like this. But for example, my step-grandfather was Scottish, so I'm quite involved with Scotland since my childhood. Some Scottish still complain about me because I don't agree with everything they say when I talk on my channel.
Do you have a kilt?
No, I don't.
Not yet.
I was too small when he died, but I had a lot of wonderful years with him, and so I'm still attached to Scotland, and I am pro independence of Scotland under the current conditions. Before someone's asking, but there are still things that keep me emotionally involved in that. I still have friends in the UK from my time being there. I have friends that are relatives of very close friends of mine that are living in the UK or living in England, living in Wales. So I have friends in Cardiff and Swindon and whatsoever. And so we are connected. And the most important part is Brexit did not only damage the UK. There was a sole decision of the UK, but it damaged all our countries. And so, of course, we, in some way or another, we are emotionally involved in this because I'm still a bit angry that they dragged us all in with them.
Yeah, I uploaded a video recently about how it's going to impact Ireland. And Ireland, I said in the video, didn't vote for this, but they're suffering the consequences. Yeah. But emotionally connected, I actually feel emotionally connected because before I started making these videos, I have friends and family in the UK. Since making these videos, I have more and more friends living in the UK, in Scotland, in England, in Wales, in Northern Ireland. And I feel connected to those people, and I feel that when something bad goes wrong, happens, they're going to suffer the consequences. And I feel for those people because they're like friends. It's, when you have a friend who's in need, you have a friend who's suffering, you have an emotional connection to that. You feel that pain as well. And if I feel that if I can do something with this channel, if I can highlight what's going on, then that's something positive. People send me comments every day about you. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for raising these issues. I'm sure you get the same, Mark. So I think we on the outside, there is a sort of advantage that people seem to think that we're not emotionally connected, but because of the connected world that we live in, of course, we are emotionally connected and connected with friends and family. I have relatives. My wife's cousin, he lives in London. He's just lost his job and he doesn't know what's going to happen. He has a wife and a child, and following Brexit, he doesn't know what's going to happen. He may need to return to Italy, a place that he left in order to have a better life. Anyway, let's move on. Thanks for that question, DS. So our next question is from Jean. How is the UK going to deal with friction that is taking place at the borders, with little or no facilities for lorry drivers, many not wanting to do the UK route, wasting time in queues, and, for instance, routes closing such as Hulzerberg? I know I'm mispronouncing that, apologies. So I'll take this and then maybe you can answer it, Mark. So how's the UK going to deal with the friction? I think we have to look at it from 2 points of view. The EU understood that there was a possibility of a no-deal Brexit many years ago, and they informed the member states, prepare for a no-deal Brexit. On the UK side, Boris Johnson and Michael Gove said, don't worry, we're going to get a deal, we're going to get a deal, we're going to get a deal. And then as we got closer to the end of the transition period, they said, well, we don't need a deal. And this created a huge amount of confusion. And they played this game where they didn't invest in the infrastructure necessary, considering that, well, it will sort itself out. And it did not sort itself out. And now they're struggling. At the moment, we don't see it. And as Marc has said, there is a sort of transition period still existing on certain parts of the deal. But I think at the borders, we're going to start to see the problems, escalate. Because from this month, because of all of this stockpiling, it has alleviated some of the problems and issues. But as the weeks start to pass and lorries have to start entering the UK, we're going to start to see these problems. And I don't know for the European side, but I have a feeling that most of the European ports have prepared for this, but I don't think the UK side has fully prepared for it. And all you need is one side not being prepared for everything to come crashing down. What do you think, Marc?
Yeah, I just want to start with a quite fun incident in this question because of the connection Hull-Zeebrugge. Hull is in Hull. There's the partner school of my grammar school, so the example was well picked. In the end, they will have all the facilities they need. They will have, at some point, they will have to get the IT systems running and stuff like that. But what's the case because of Brexit and because of the regulations we still have? There is still a lot of red tape involved in this because they're not anymore member of the customs union and the single market. All these things will stay. That's the worst part from my point of view. Kent will have a certain position now in the long run. That you need these certificates to get there. The famous Farage garage will have to stay there for quite some time. And they will have to deal with this for the long run. And other countries will adapt to that too. I'm quite sure that even if we have the deal now, Ireland will still use more sea routes for their trade than before when they had all their traffic on the land traveling to Europe through the UK, and that will have a big impact on the long run. They will get that sorted with the preparations they have to make, but only the preparations they can make. You can't avoid everything because they have a worse deal than before.
Yeah, it's what is it? One of the only deals in history where you erected borders, erected restrictions instead of broke them down.
Yeah, and about the best deal is with in the end with Norway and other countries, and not that one.
Okay, I think we'll do one more, Marc, and then if you want, we can take a little break. Oops, why did that go forward? We'll go back up one. Okay. No, sorry, something jumped here. Okay, number 15. So Timo says, how long do you think it will take before the UK will breach the agreement and the EU will put tariffs on UK products? So this is in relation to the level playing field and how the UK should be aligned with European standards. If the UK deviates from these standards, then the EU have the possibility to impose tariffs. Marc, what do you think about that? As you're more an expert on this than I am.
Well, this depends a lot on what happens in the future with other countries. How long does it take until he will get an FTA with the USA? That's something that will take some time because Joe Biden won't have it up on his list. But at some point they will get that one. What government is in place at that time? Will they do deals with India like the one that's proposed at the moment? I don't think any British government would sign, but who is in charge at the moment when they are offered that one? And on the other hand, the thing I hope it's not happening, but it is possible because the member states always have to agree with each other, is how fast will the EU react? How much will they let go through before they start to take action on that one? How often will they close their eyes? I hope not very much, but it's not improbable that they will do it for quite some time for tiny ones until they're really fed up with the UK.
Yeah, I think it's it depends on the government that's involved. I don't see Boris Johnson remaining for a long time as Prime Minister, and the next Prime Minister will... I have a feeling a lot of this Brexit rhetoric will eventually die out, and the UK will align with European standards and remain aligned. But when it could happen, it could be anyone's guess. But I don't see it really happening in the short term or in the long term. It may happen in the short term, depending on who replaces Boris Johnson. But moving forward, I think in the long term, the UK wants to be aligned with EU standards because they need to trade, and it just going in the direction of the USA will compensate somewhat for the loss of trade with the European Union, but it will not substitute it. Okay, so what we can do is we can take a little break, Mark. If you want to get another coffee or something, we can return in a few minutes' time. So I'm just going to put up a little video for everyone to enjoy, a little comedy moment.
Yeah, I just want to get my tablet fixed. For some reason, I didn't see a single comment all the time, and that's usually the most funny part of your live streams. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, just let me exit this, and I'll bring up my video with... see if you guys can see that. Oh, one moment.
Yeah, I do.
Here we go.
Hi there, Nicola here. Well,
It's
you need to
typical tech
excuse
when
me,
you
my wee
need it.
steak pie supper's
Right
repeating
now, I'm
on me
seeing
for last
nothing.
night. Guys, the lockdown is
Okay, I'll
just
be back in
fucking
a second.
horrendous. I'm absolutely gutted that we're back here where we started. We're doing our best to try and keep everybody safe. We're all up to high fucking dough and exhausted with a lot of it. But we've just got to keep going. I don't know what else there is we can do other than me getting a crystal ball out and telling everybody what's going to be happening next. So we're going to go over to a journalist and see what's happening today. I mean, I can't even imagine what that will be.
Donald Trump is reportedly
Oh,
thinking
for
about coming to
fuck's
Scotland
sake,
to avoid
Trump.
Joe Biden's inauguration. Do you have a message for him?
Do you have a message for Donald Trump? Listen, we're having a pandemic and the rules are you can't fly into Scotland unless it's essential travel. I mean, I can't see why he would want to leave the White House and not attend Joe Biden's big party. Does Donald Trump not love a big party? Remember, he likes to take photos of the crowds. I can't see why he'd want to fly away. Surely that wouldn't be upsetting his fucking ego. So see if we Jeanette can't go and visit her granny in Press Week. Donald can't fucking fly into it to come and play golf. It is what it is. Right, I've had enough. Where's my clicky pen? Get your fucking mask on, Alan. Frank, get the door. I want a big pot of mince today. Fucking feet are killing me.
Okay, but don't worry, we'll have another one later on. So I want to read some of your comments while we wait for Mark to return. Let me see. Over 1,000, Max. That's fantastic. Thanks for that comment, Killer. We have over 1,000 viewers. That's amazing. So, I have a lot of other people lined up, a queue out the door for more live streams. So I hope you guys enjoy it because we'll be doing some more in the future. Let me read. Again, you guys make the stream as well. So, where's my clicky pen? Now, the idea that Donald Trump would be coming over to Scotland just is insane. Like, I understand that he doesn't want to stay in the White House because he looks. I think it's since December, maybe since November, Donald Trump has been looking out his window and seeing a construction take place of get James O'Brien. Yeah, we'll try and get James O'Brien on the stream eventually. Okay, Mark, are you ready to go again?
Yeah, sure. I still don't have comments, so
I
hope
sorry.
there were a lot of comments and stuff like that in the meantime. But I couldn't see them.
We're over 1,000 viewers, so I do recommend, guys.
Great.
Yeah, do check out Mark's channel. Do become a subscriber. He's a fantastic commentator, so he knows a lot of things, a lot more than me on many issues. So do check out his channel. Become a subscriber. Okay, let's move on to the. I'll just go view. Whoops.
To Ian.
Okay, Ian Davidson. Just bring back up my screen. Okay, so Ian asks, could there be an EU citizenship created for UK citizens living and working in the EU? We could be the first true European citizens, not connected to any one country, but to the EU as a whole. That's an interesting question. Do you want to answer that, Marc?
Yeah, and I'm gonna answer that with, oh hell no, because I know where this is coming from, Ian. So no offense, but that will be just another example, just from another direction of British exceptionalism, and I'm quite glad we got rid of that now. No, you have to be a citizen of an EU member state to be a citizen of the EU. And that's how it's supposed to be, and that's how it's supposed to be in the future. So if you want to be a citizen of the EU, you have to be a citizen of a member state. So you'll have to move there. And that's another point is, of course, you can do that now if you have a lot of money, like with Malta, and I guess in the Baltic you can do that too. But that's something about the reforms of the EU. We need to stop that stuff, that you can buy citizenship. You really have to be a citizen of the EU in the real sense by being a citizen of one of the member states.
Yes, no, I agree 100%. I know there is this idea perhaps in Estonia where you can become a digital citizen or something like that, but that's about starting a business, which maybe is something positive. But the idea that, you can be a Saudi prince and buy citizenship in the UK or in a member state of the European Union, where you're not a true citizen in the sense you're just using it as a place to to funnel some cash for a few years or something like that. That's not citizenship. A citizen is someone who partakes in society, who votes, who contributes, so that those types of people are not the true sense of what a citizen is. So I understand the idea of opening up. Perhaps it could be possible to have some sort of cooperation. I do like the idea that there are people in the UK who feel European, and they're not able to, in a sense, express that. They're not able to take the advantage of that. But there could be maybe in the future. What do you think, Marc, of having some sort of, I don't like the use of the expression second-class citizen, but some type of agreement with other countries where people could have some of the rights that members of the European Union have, while not actually being a member.
Well, that's a point of democracy. If the majority of your country doesn't want to be in there, you can't do anything about this. That's the downside of democracy. The minorities are supposed to be protected, but they are not supposed to get everything they want. So that's the part. And just to add this, I'm not a friend of dual citizenships either, except in a very small number of very specific cases where there is no way around this. Otherwise, I'm not a friend at all of dual citizenships. That's another reason for this, why I would definitely oppose that one.
Okay, good. Let's move on. We have from Antonio. What would it take for the Labour Party to be less foot-dragging in supporting Rejoin? Or what are the roots of its minority leave soul? Can the leadership use the next 4 years to convince or educate this soul so they can act more boldly? So, what do you think about this aspect of the rejoin? So within the Labour Party, there is a certain section of that want to rejoin the European Union. Antonio sees it as foot dragging, that he doesn't seem to, he's not convinced that they're fully on board with this. And how could they convince the leave section, the remaining Brexiteers within the Labour Party? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, at the moment, I have more the feeling that they're further moving away from that, instead of trying to convince the others that it's a good idea to have rejoin in the near future in the manifesto. So I really doubt that. And I don't think that Keir Starmer really wants that. I think he wants to get his red wall back in the next elections. And for the people who saw my video on Boston, they will probably know the people feel the consequences. They are disappointed and still say it was the right decision to vote leave. And that's a lot in the north of England where the people will say, if you now start talk about rejoining, we have to vote for the Tories again, and not the Labour as we did the 20 years before or 30 years before. So I don't really see that coming. They need many rejoiners would have to join the Labour Party to change the minorities within the party to get that done.
Yeah, I think for example, political junkies will view it as, okay, well, joining the European Union makes logical sense, but the average voter doesn't see it that way. And you would need to convince I think at the moment, Keir Starmer wants to win the election first and then deal with Europe, because he knows that Europe is not going to win him an election. Local issues, national issues are going to win him an election. The NHS, COVID, all of these. And I think at the moment that's what he's focusing on. It seems as if he's disinterested in rejoining the European Union, but I think at the moment he has it on the back burner. I think he has said to himself, look, this isn't going to win me an election. First, I need to win the election, and then we need to look at rejoining. Now, I fully believe that a rejoin movement should be grassroots. Maybe later on get involved with a particular party, but it should start outside the main parties. It should be a true grassroots movement, and then later on convince the parties. You could even maybe convince members of the Conservative Party to support rejoining the European Union. We don't know what the future holds, and there are, of course, members of the Conservative Party who would be warm to that, I think. But I think yes, go on.
If you have a look at the moment, there's a petition. There is a rejoin group on Facebook, for example, and there's a petition for rejoin. It's not, no offense to them, but there are not so many people that have signed that you would say it's a big movement at the moment. So I think the people have other problems at the moment. And what adds to that, if Starmer always says all the problems that are piling up now in the future are to blame on Brexit, he would not be very intelligent as a politician, because he can't blame them on Boris or the other Tory leader following Boris before the next election. And so he will need that to blame all the problems on the Tory government and not on Brexit, because that would be something diffuse and in the air and not something certain he can use as a weapon. So from a political point of view, it's not wise to go on to rejoin for Labour at the moment.
Okay. Okay, these are some more personal questions. So Conservator asks both of us, you are the Deputy District Mayor. Well, but I don't know what's for me. I'm not a Deputy District Mayor yet. How much work is that, and how do you manage to run your YouTube channel next to that?
Well, first of all these local political posts, except the mayor of the whole city, are voluntary jobs. It's honorary jobs. We are elected and we don't get paid for that. We get a small amount of money for our expenses, but we don't get paid. It's not a paid job. So I do this in my spare time all the time already. And it takes a lot of hours in normal times. But now in the pandemic, even we are completely reduced just to group meetings and to our sessions, because we have to decide. If we don't decide, no street will be repaired, no kindergarten will be built, and so on. So we still have to do that work. But everything else connected to that is gone during the pandemic. And that's why I used the lockdown to make a lot of videos. In the future, when everything is back to normal, you will not see 3 to 6 videos from me in one day. I'll be back to 1 video a day or something. So I just used the lockdown to do that, because even my day job is completely reduced to almost zero in that time, because everything is locked down here. We are in complete lockdown in Germany already again. And that's why I could spend that much time this year on YouTube. In my normal times, I couldn't, because I have to spend time at a lot of associations. Now, with being a deputy district mayor, it's a representative job. When the mayor is not there, I have to represent our council there at all associations, at the schools, companies, whatever. And so I will have less time. But it's lockdown, so I had a lot of time for YouTube.
Can you tell us, like, what was your motivation to become a deputy mayor? Was it your people suggested it to you, or you decided yourself you wanted this post?
Well, first of all, I'm in politics since I was in school. There was a break in between when I was in the military, and when I was in the UK. So I spent some time in the UK, in the Netherlands, and so on. And of course, then I wasn't in politics. But when I was back in Münster, I started politics again. And I'm in local politics. That's what I like. I always wanted to be in local politics. And the first step is to be, when you get a mandate, as a borough councillor. Because there you make decisions that you see right in front of your door. That's what I always wanted. I want to work for something where I see the results in the end. And that you can do in the local area. That I'm now deputy district mayor is just a consequence of my work of those years that I was asked in the end to run for district mayor. Just the other parties had more votes in the last election in their coalition than we alone had. So I just became deputy and not the mayor.
Do you have ambitions for the future? Maybe to become mayor or eventually chancellor?
No, my goal is maybe someday in the city council, but I don't know. I really feel well in my district. Of course, my ambition is next time in 5 years to try again to become the district mayor.
Good. Okay. Let's move on. We have this question, which is a combined question from Mr. Spoon and Wee Scott's Dog. So it says, Marc, could you tell a bit about your own political party and its place in Germany, Germany's federal system, and where would you place yourself in? So this is a difficult question. Is where would you place yourself in the UK political spectrum?
Well, about the German part, I can keep that short. The Christian Democratic Union I'm a member of is the Conservative Party in Germany, but it's not to compare with the Tories in the UK.
It's the party headed by Angela Merkel, yes. Exactly.
We have the federal government at the moment together with the Social Democrats. We are in the state government at the moment together with the Liberal Democrats. So we are quite represented in Germany. As I said, the Christian Democrats are not really to compare with the Tories at the moment. There were times when they were more comparable than today. And it's really hard to think about where I would be in the UK system. I would probably be somewhere between the Lib Dems and the SNP if you look at the manifestos. But there's not a real party, I would say, that one is comparable to mine, and I would be there. There are aspects in the Liberal Democrats and there are aspects in the SNP, for example. If you combine them, you can get a little bit of a match.
Yeah, so I think as you said, the CDU of maybe the 1990s or 1980s was more comparable with the Conservative Party of that period. But the Conservative Party today is just gone completely off the deep end, I think. It's more comparable maybe with the League Party here in Italy, almost. Okay.
Or the AfD in Germany.
Or the AfD in Germany. Okay. Ministerian has a question for both of us. What do you best like about each other's channel? So I'll start. I love Marc's backgrounds, and I am, I don't know if you guys can see it, I am a Star Wars fan, and Marc normally has some Star Wars figures behind him. I really like Marc's style. It's very not formal, but it's formal and friendly. That's the way I see it. You're very informative, but you come across in a very friendly way. What about me?
Thank you very much for that one. What I really like about your channel, that was not a joke earlier, is your live streams, by the way, because it's really fun listening to you there. It's fun to see the comments, of course. It's fun when you put in. That's why I also asked for you putting in something in the middle of our stream, something funny, because I always like that on your stream. And of course, your other point of view, you're coming from another direction than me, and so I get more input. Sometimes things I didn't think about. It's just a shame that I don't see you that often in your videos.
Okay. I try to maintain the mystique, but when I do the live stream like this, I destroy the mystique. So, okay, cool. Thanks for that question, Ministerian. So we'll move on. This is from Salford Lads Club. Will Tottenham win the Premier League?
You want to go first?
I have no idea.
Okay, then I'm gonna take that one. If who was that? Yeah, if you are a Tottenham fan, I'm still gonna disappoint you because I still believe even what happened today with Liverpool, I still believe Liverpool will do it. I'm a big fan of Jurgen Klopp. As long as he stays there, if he becomes national manager in Germany again, because something happens in the meantime, I wouldn't bet on Liverpool. But as long as Klopp stays there, I still bet on Liverpool, even if they didn't get many points in the last 3 matches. And today were really kicked by Southampton. But it was another German manager, so I don't blame him too much for that.
Are you a big football fan? Or is there a sport that you're interested in?
I'm not a gigantic one. I switch between a lot of kinds of sports. In the winter, I watch a lot of winter sports as well. Today, of course, I watched the qualification of ski jumping today, because there's the last part of the what is Schanze in English? Damn it!
I don't
you know the
trial,
the
no.
big parts. No, the big parts where they're jumping from.
The slope.
The last station is tomorrow in Bischofshofen, and some Germans are still hanging on the back of Kamil Stoch, the Polish guy who's in the lead at the moment, and I'm still hoping we can do that. So I watch a lot of sports.
Okay, for example,
I have the time.
I'm from Ireland, so our best sport would be rugby. Here in Italy, the best sport would be for the most representative sport would be probably football, or maybe basketball. Well, in Germany, what would be football as well? Would it be the most popular?
Yeah, of course. Most popular is football, but more and more darts. By the way, congratulations to German Price at the moment. Even if he's Welsh and he's beaten the Scottish, so Glasgow Kiss. I'm sorry. I saw the final of the darts championships as well, and it's very popular in Germany now. There was one surprise win for a German in that tournament, and about 2 million people have watched it, and that for sports like darts. So that's a lot in Germany. Okay. It's getting more and more popular.
I should actually take it up because I'm working on a beer belly, so I know it's a requirement.
Yeah, I've got something ahead of you.
Okay. That's why I keep the camera this high. Okay. Reale has a question for Marc. If Dexit is a new word, Dexit is ever proposed, how would you campaign for Remain? How do you think the AfD and co would campaign for Leave? For example, bring back the Deutschmark. Would they demonize fellow Europeans? So, is there an actual movement in Germany for some type of exit, and how successful, or how would you campaign against it?
Well, first of all, everything that wasn't the question is a thing of the past here. Dexit is an old word, by the way. We had this in Germany, but nobody's talking about that anymore, even not the AfD. Before the last European elections, they took it out of their manifesto because they knew they would completely get wrecked if they keep that in. Even the AfD, our right-wing party, the extremists, is not asking for Dexit anymore. So we have a very small minority. I don't know, the tinfoil hat guys that are going against everything at the moment probably would want Dexit, but nobody else, because everyone understands the benefits of the EU. Not in detail, most probably, but they see we are doing well. Of course, they complain about the vaccine program of the EU at the moment and stuff. They complain. I do complain about the EU in detail, but all over, the EU is really good for Germany, especially for Germany, as some others complain about it most of the time. But we would be stupid to leave the EU. There are discussions about the EU of the willing, for example, when we have trouble with other countries that don't want to stay in the rule of law or obey to the rules and stuff like this. But nobody's really thinking about this in Germany. In the past, they said, let's get the Deutschmark back. We don't want the euro. They are an anti-euro party and stuff like this. We had this in the past. But before the last European election, they kicked that all out.
Is the AfD still campaigning against the euro, or they've moved on from everything just down to the because I think the euro is still quite unpopular. I think because most people don't understand the value of it. But yeah, it's the same thing happened here in Italy. We had the League Party, which which was formerly in government until recently, and they had, right up until Brexit, they had part of their manifesto was a referendum on the euro and a referendum on European membership, and very quietly they removed both of those. Now I think some of the parties still want their extreme right. They're pretty much like the AfD, the League Party. Some of them within the party still want a referendum on the euro, but European membership has pretty much disappeared. I think it's something...
Yeah,
Sorry, go on.
No, I just wanted to say, but that would for us even be a mistake, because if you know economics, we are an export country. A weak euro, it's a bit strong at the moment, especially because of Brexit. That's bad for an export country. If we get back the Deutschmark, it would be far too strong. We wouldn't have the exports and the income we have today if we still had the Deutschmark.
Yeah. So, how just a hypothetical? How would you campaign if there was a movement, a strong movement, for some sort of Dexit? How would you campaign against it?
Well, I probably would just tape a lot of my videos. They already exist in German again, and publish them, for example. I said most I would say in a campaign in my videos, because the same that goes for the UK would go for Germany. The disadvantages would be big, and even more for Germany than for the UK. The UK loses a lot with their services. We would lose a lot in trade with goods, and that's our big strength we have. And we don't want to lose 750 agreements with the rest of the world.
Would you agree that, and this has been an idea, or this has been floated, the idea that because Europe had suffered so much during many wars over many centuries, and England or the UK was never really suffered to the same extent, perhaps that's one of the reasons why we in Europe are so adamant about having unity, remaining united, avoiding war, for example. What do you think about that?
Well, there was no incident that especially France and Germany were the two countries that started a very close friendship in that time with Charles de Gaulle and Konrad Adenauer, because they knew exactly what happens when you go to war with each other. They went to war with each other and invaded each other several times. And the UK, at least for 1,000 years or so, have not been invaded anymore, and don't know that. And there's, I don't want to offend anyone, but a lot of people in the UK, especially from the Brexit side, when I read this in my comments, believe they fought the war all alone and they won the war all alone, leave out the Americans and stuff like that. And that's why they believe we don't need anybody else. We're good enough alone. And that's, from my point of view, completely wrong. And of course, NATO protected us from the USSR and stuff like that. But the real peace project to prevent the Western states to fight each other in Europe again was the European Union.
Yes.
And yeah.
No, well said. Okay, let's move on. We have Erles. Both of us. I'd like to ask you both about Italy's current political standing from both a German and a resident point of view. So I'm not exactly sure I fully understand this question, but Italy's political standing. So Italy at the moment is a little bit of a disaster. We've gone through a number of different governments in a very short period of time. At the moment, we have a coalition that's formed between the centre-left PD, political Democratic Party, sorry, I'm thinking in Italian, the Democratic Party, and we have the Five Star Movement. The Five Star Movement are more a populist movement. Because of COVID, there is support for the government, but I'm afraid that as soon as that crisis ends, the government will probably collapse. And then we'll start off with another government, probably with Salvini. His right-wing League Party will be probably back in power, or maybe Berlusconi will be taken out of his crypt, and he will be prime minister once again. But from Italian politics is very interesting, but it's chaotic, and there is an aspect of it that's very interesting, how politicians are not very loyal to their party. So what they'll do is, if there's a particular party in power, they'll switch. So today I could be center right. Tomorrow I'll be center left, because the center left party are in power. There are the extremes which are more loyal to their parties, but people in the center generally just jump ship because, well, there's power and money involved. What is the view in Germany of? And I'm not being very kind to the Italian political system, because I'm not Italian, but this is my view from within. What is the view in Germany of Italian politics or the current system?
Well, if you just follow it on the media, of course, if you look on it from Germany, it just looks like chaos. They made a joke recently about how many US presidents were in office during the time Angela Merkel was in office. I don't want to count the number of prime ministers in Italy during that time, to be honest. Yeah, exactly. So that looks really chaotic, and we always wonder how you can do a proper job there with so many changes and so many elections. And the last time they wanted an election again. And yes. But from the point of view with Italian politics and the European Union, there is a more positive view now from Germany on Italy, because when everything shifted, especially now with the pandemic and the aid package of the EU, for example, a lot paid off that by Germany anyway, that the view in Italy a bit changed towards the EU, and that the Italexit demands have been reduced as well. That's the view we get here from Italy.
True. Yes, it's true. Something I think was really pivotal was, I think it was it was a couple of months ago when the German Air Force sent a number of aircraft into Bergamo. And Bergamo, if people don't know, Bergamo was ground zero for the virus in Italy. It started in Bergamo, just outside Bergamo. And Bergamo is in the north of Italy, near Milan. And I remember I was emotional when I saw this. I saw footage of German aircraft flying into Bergamo in the middle of this pandemic, and they were picking up patients because the hospitals were close to complete collapse, and they were flying them back to Germany, and they also did it in France as well. They picked up people from France, and for me it was emotional because I thought of these. The German state are reaching out to the Italians. There's no benefit for the German state. Actually, I was thinking, wouldn't people in Germany be complaining, be angry about this? How are you putting our military staff in danger? And I just thought it was pure solidarity. And, I don't know how much it cost the German state. I don't think the people really cared about that. But the idea that you're putting your military staff in harm's way to help another state was, I was without words. I don't know if you remember that. You probably do.
Yeah, of course. That was medical Air Force staff, so I had full confidence that they know what they're doing and they are not in danger in that moment. We did this for the Netherlands, had patients here in my hometown, for example. And that's something that should be the normal case in Europe. Yeah, if someone is in more need and we have capacities, then we help them. That's what we did in Germany when we helped France, Italy, Netherlands, and so on. We had the capacities. We weren't struck that hard as we are now, yes. And we still had capacities, so we can help the others. And compared to the costs we have for dealing with the pandemic on ourselves, that is really so negligible what that costs. So who cares?
For me, it was almost the complete opposite of the Brexit mentality. The Brexit mentality is we close the door, we keep these people out, we don't work together, we work alone. And this was for me, it was the perfect example of European solidarity.
Well, we also sent ventilators to the UK when they didn't have enough. Yes. But then the Brexiteers even said you were ordered by NATO to do so, you didn't do it voluntarily. But we did.
I'll need a ventilator if I think about that too much. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Buxton has a question for you, Marc. And once again, I want to say a big thank you to everyone. I should have said this before. Big thank you to everyone who's been sending in super chats. Thank you so much. Those super chats are going to go to a fantastic charity, a very it's a local charity that Marc has described, and it's well worth the cause and well worth your money. Very good.
Thank you very much. Even if I didn't see a single one of them on my tablet is doing a mess at the moment. Thank you very much.
I'll try to check it after, but I've seen a lot of super chats coming in, so that's great. Thanks so much for all of that.
So if I might add,
yes.
Hanno, if you joined us tonight, welcome, because I invited the president of the charity to join us tonight as well and to watch the live stream. So Hanno, if you're there, thank you very much for the work you're doing. It's really important work you're doing.
It is. Thank you very much for coming on as well. Okay, let's go on to Buxton's question for Marc. Who's likely to follow... this is interesting. Who's likely to follow on from Angela Merkel? Am I pronouncing her name correctly? Because English people tend to call her Angela Merkel, but I think it's Angela Merkel.
Yeah, it's Angela in German.
Okay. Yeah. So who is likely to follow on from Angela Merkel? How much change will there be in German politics when she stands down?
Well, the first question really influences the second one. But to answer the first question, for what post? Because she's got two important posts where she needs someone to succeed her. As leader of our party, first of all, there are three candidates at the moment. They are campaigning right now, and we soon will have an election there.
Can I ask, do you have a favorite?
Yes, I do. I just wanted to name them quickly because
ahead.
It's Friedrich Merz is one of them. He would put my party far more to the right than we are now. Then there's Norbert Röttgen. He's quite, how do I say this in English? He would try to bring all the wings, we call that wings in our parties, if we have left and right and liberals and inside the parties and so more together. And he's very much up for equality. He would try to equally put all the posts. And then there's Armin Laschet. He's the prime minister of my home state. And he would continue a lot Angela Merkel is doing. I think with him, we would have the least changes. Some people think it's positive. Some people think it's negative. At the moment, it doesn't look like as if he could do it to get the votes. It looks more like Friedrich Merz might do it. It's not my favorite choice. My choice would be Armin Laschet, although many criticize that it's my choice. But he would continue a lot of the good things Angela Merkel did. She was long in office, so there's a lot to criticize, but there are a lot of good things she did, and we wouldn't be there where we are today, especially internationally, if it wasn't about for her. And about the chancellor, there are more candidates because we have a sister party. It's a bit complicated in Germany. After the war, the CDU was present all over Germany except Bavaria. And in Bavaria, we have the Christian Social Union. And they made a contract that they are sister parties, that's what we call them. And in Bavaria, it's only them, and in the rest of the Republic, only us. And the Prime Minister of Bavaria, the leader of the Christian Social Union, is a candidate for the chancellorship as well, because he's doing a really good job during the pandemic, and he's really popular all over Germany at the moment, although I wouldn't have thought that some months ago.
Okay, for example, when was the last time there was a Bavarian chancellor?
Never.
Never. So the very first one. Okay.
We had candidates twice from that party. One before Helmut Kohl, and he failed, but that were completely other times. We just had three parties in parliament, and a very close one before Angela Merkel, because she was already a leader of the CDU, but she let the chairman of the CSU go first for chancellorship against Schröder, but he narrowly failed, and the next time Angela Merkel then did it.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. Let's move on. Savino asks for both of us, what are the biggest challenges for EU unity? How to prevent another EU member exit without compromising on the EU fundamental values, for example, regarding Poland and Hungary. So, what are the biggest challenges facing EU unity? I think COVID was probably one of the biggest challenges, in my opinion, and maybe in a way, I think European expansion, so bringing a lot of new countries very quickly, I think may have been a bad idea. Because the more people you have, the more people you have to keep happy. And I think it can cause a certain amount of strain within the European Union. Countries like Poland and Hungary are probably not the ones more likely to leave if there isn't. So how can we prevent a European member state from exiting? I don't think, the European Union don't really have a mechanism to stop them. If they want to leave, they can leave. The primary example being the UK. But I think going forward, I don't think many states will want to leave because they're going to see the damage that Brexit has caused to the UK. But I think a lot of this is saber rattling, where countries like Poland and Hungary want something. They'll threaten maybe to leave, but they won't actually leave because they realize it's not in their interest. What do you think about that, Marc? So the first question about how do we? What are the biggest challenges facing the EU?
To be honest, the biggest challenge is gone now, because Britain blocked a lot during the time as a member that was supposed to happen, or that they were talking about. There were no referendums or votes on certain things, because everybody already knew the British will block it, so we don't even talk about this further at the moment. So that will take away a lot of things that were stopped. But saying that we really do need reforms now. The EU has to take care of itself now, not being distracted by Brexit. And that's why we need the pandemic to be over in a certain amount of time, so that the EU can finally concentrate on its own issues, because there are enough. The EU needs a lot of reform, especially before we let new members in. And we also need a possibility to kick someone out. That should be part of reform in the future, to have an instrument to kick another country out if it completely breaks the rules of the EU. I don't see that being used, to be honest. But to have this as a mechanism to tell them, if you go further like this, in that direction, you can't stay with us. That's something they're going to need. And Poland and Hungary are always brought up. They are not on the top of my list that they would leave the EU. They are benefiting far too much from the EU. They're trying and testing now what they can do within the limits. They're testing all the limits at the moment, but we saw this at the new budget, that they reached the limit and where they had to stop. And they will do that in the future as well, as long as those governments are there. But I don't see them leaving. And I made a video some weeks ago about the European exit index from an Austrian professor. Other countries were on top of that list, but even the top of that list is really low in percentage. It was the Czech Republic, by the way, that was on top of that list. And even their numbers are quite low now. So in the near future, I don't see any ambitions for leaving the EU, especially after seeing what Brexit means. That got the ambitions down big time, to see the consequences of Brexit.
Yeah, I can't speak for other European countries, but I know in Italy, for sure, the support for leaving the European Union plummeted after the Brexit vote, and that isn't even before we see the full extent of Brexit. Okay, let's move on. Gratok has a question for both of us. So about the US, what things should Joe Biden focus on to repair the US-European relationship, particularly in terms of the two big players, France and Germany? What do you think about that, Marc? So what can Joe Biden do to undo some of the damage that Donald Trump has done to the European-US alliance?
First of all, and that might sound funny, but first of all, he just has to be a normal US president and not what we call in Germany. I like to use German proverbs and stuff like that in my videos. We would call it an elephant in a porcelain shop.
Okay.
What we had the last 4
maybe,
years.
I don't know if you know, a bull in a china shop we have in English.
Yeah, probably. No, he just has to be a normal US president, a reasonable US president, and I even call his predecessors, that even George W. Bush and stuff, you can say whatever you want, but they were, in comparison to Trump, all reasonable presidents. And that's what he just needs to be. And many things that need to be repaired in detail, the Congress already started, like the budget for the military, where they stopped the removal from the troops from Germany and stuff like that. There will be some reasonable politics in the US again, depending on what happens in Georgia now, especially with the Senate seats. It looks good for the Democrats, I must say. And if he gets this majority, he can even really make politics and move things forward. And that already will repair the situation. And as he said, he will focus more on Europe again. That's what Trump didn't do. He was focused on the UK and pro-Brexit and stuff like that, but he neglected a lot of Europe, what other presidents didn't do. And you must not forget, Joe Biden was Obama's vice president. Obama was a lot of time in Germany, for example, and other European countries. He's been here a lot, and he wanted the USA to be close to Europe. And I'm quite sure Joe Biden, many of our politicians know him from that time, will do the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, just be a normal politician. I think with politics or international politics, you can either be, it's important to be either liked or respected. For Trump, he was neither liked nor respected.
Yes.
So at least, you don't need to be liked, but at least be respected. And I think Joe Biden can manage both of those. I think there'll be a sigh of relief in Europe once Joe Biden is in the White House and Trump is out. Because you can sort of return to some sort of normality. It's not so unpredictable man-child behavior.
Yeah, and to add that, because a lot of people to blame him bring up his age, even if something like this should happen, I think Kamala Harris would do the same.
Yeah.
If she would have to take over office. So
yeah, there'd be no real difference.
Yeah.
Okay, we're towards the end, getting towards the end now. We have Jean T asks Marc, perhaps explain the advantages of a written constitution. So the UK does not have a written constitution, but Germany does. Can you explain some of the advantages of a written constitution?
Well, the most obvious one is if you have the whole constitution in one book, where you just have a look through and find everything about the constitution. That's much easier than to look in how many books over the time have they written about that in the UK. And the point is, with a written constitution, we also have a constitutional court. We don't only have a Supreme Court, we do have a Supreme Court too, but we also have a constitutional court. That's the guardian of this constitution. That doesn't exist in the UK, for example, like this. And you always can demand your rights based on this constitution, and you know your constitution. In the UK, there's a lot of writing in different books. There's a lot of precedents you have to research to find out how is this working or not. And it's hella complicated. I'm not sure that any or too many people in the House of Commons understand their own constitution. Mine, it's just that big. I can read through it in a short amount of time. And of course, the other thing for immigrants, they are available in all languages for free. Yeah, you just can order them from the Bundestag for free in every language. So everyone can be aware of the Constitution. How many people without a written Constitution are aware of all their rights or the limitations of the system? And of course, the separation of power is in the Constitution. And it's very clear there, the clear separation of powers. So our government can't do anything about the courts. And that's written down there for the first look. And the rights of our parliament, which are completely different from the UK parliament again, and the rights of the government. So everyone knows them if they want to know. And it's easy to find out.
Yes, it's much more difficult if you don't have a written constitution. You need a legal expert to guide you through.
And the rights of our states as well are in there with the federalism part. Those rights are in the Constitution as well. So they always can claim the Constitution and go to the constitutional courts if the federal government wants to act in their territory.
Okay, very good. Let's move on. Riele has a question for both of us. Is there a way the UK can have a two-voiced voting, first past the post direct mandates or PR to determine the shape of Parliament? I don't see the UK going down the road of any change in the current political electoral system, because it serves both parties. Now, I hope the Labour Party will adopt some new, be it PR or be it a variation of that. But at the moment, the Conservatives definitely won't support that. And I was just reading today, I know it's not exactly related to this, but I was just reading today about how the government are planning to rewrite the borders, where Scotland is going to lose a number of seats in Parliament. England is going to gain, I think it's 10 seats. Wales is going to lose seats as well. So this is not, it's going to help the English parties, those being Labour and the Conservatives. But I don't know, Mark, what do you think? Do you think the UK can go down this road?
First of all, I just want to add that will help the independence movement in Scotland, I guess, with moving the borders for the constituencies. I don't see that either, because the Labour had the chance to do that under Tony Blair, under Gordon Brown. They were in power and they had enough votes to do that, but they didn't. And when you're in power, you think about other things. I have to blame my own party for this as well. We are discussing a reform of our Bundestag because it's getting too big. My party is blocking a lot of that because they would lose seats because of a reform. So I'm not saying we're perfect either. So it's the same here. We had to restructure the constituencies for the next state election here in my hometown. We have 2 seats now. We have to be combined with another neighborhood to have 3. And they were structured that we definitely get 2 of them from my party. So I'm honest about that who's in power is doing that the way he likes it most. No, I don't see that in the near future, because the Tories with first past the post will most of the times win, at least for the near future, as it was in the past, because when Labour won for 1 or 2 elections, they won and then they were gone again.
Yes.
And when Labour had the chance, they didn't do it either, and I don't see Labour doing that in case they win in 2028, 4, who knows?
I agree. Although to say that it wasn't a true PR that they were talking about in the past, but I do think that they need to change it in some way, because if the Labour Party want to maintain some sort of power, they need to change the system that's in place. First past the post does not serve the Labour Party at all, unless they get a huge majority. Sorry?
We don't have a pure PR either. PR decides how big our parliaments will be, and half of the votes is first past the post. In every constituency, you have 1 MP via first past the post, and you have a second vote for the lists of the state. So you have 2 votes in those elections. So it's a hybrid system we have.
Okay. Our next question is from DJ Optam. One of the biggest problems right now is confirmation bias. It seems like the unheard masses are seeking for truth-fitting facts instead of facts agreeing with the truth. How should we protect ourselves from others against it? So this idea of confirmation bias, so what I do is I have an idea in my mind, and then I look for things around the internet, for example, that reconfirm that idea. I think it's a huge problem at the moment, and what happens is we have these types of echo chambers within, for example, Facebook or even on YouTube, where we surround ourselves with people who continually think in the same way, and this reinforces our own bias. So we think, I think X. If I surround myself with people who think X as well, then it reinforces my idea that X is correct. And unfortunately, I think algorithms, be them ones on YouTube or on other social media platforms, just reinforce this because they want you to stay on these platforms. What do you think about that, Mark?
Yeah, that's one aspect, because, for example, I force myself to watch some channels I really wouldn't watch in my normal spare time. It would be not my choice, but
we'll name no names.
yeah, exactly. But I have to do this because I'm doing this work. No, but it has to start much earlier. We have to talk about education, and we have to talk about dealing with social media and stuff like this in schools. We have some starts here to do that, but it's by far not enough. You have to teach the children already to think again, to get out of your filter bubble. Most people are today in their own filter bubble, as you said, and they don't get anything from the outside. That's the problem, and that's why you have to start in education, and you have to start when the kids are young. Well, when we were young, there was not social media like this, and
speak
we didn't have the.
No, I agree. Yes, I think the life was much simpler, perhaps.
Yeah,
it was much easier to. I fear for the situation now with young people. They're so inundated with so many different messages and so conflicting and unknown. Not knowing who to trust. In the past, I assume it was also the same in Germany, but state media would present the facts. Now. People don't rely on state media at all. They rely on YouTube or Facebook or some of these other tools, which I think are extremely dubious.
Yeah, and we had many more newspapers than today because now we have far fewer newspapers, and most of them belong to the same company now. That's another problem. Plus the problem that because of social media, many people don't read newspapers anymore. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, Conservator has a question for Marc. Should the UK Parliament allow for proper discussion with rules like ministers can be interrupted, ministers can be asked again if they deviate and avoid questioning, Parliament sets its own agenda, not the government? What do you think, Marc?
Well, first of all, from Germany, I don't tell another parliament what they should do, but of course. There is a lot about the rights of Parliament in the UK where I see that Parliament is stripped of some rights other parliaments in Western countries have. It's one of the oldest democracies in the world, and but the Parliament with the least power in the Western countries, I must say. And of course, from my point of view, the House of Commons should have far more power than that in a proper separation of powers. The agenda shouldn't be made by the government, but by the parliament itself. Of course, the majority in the parliament usually is the majority of the government. But our parliament is preparing their own schedule. Our parliament can call in ministers, whatever they're doing at the moment. If they call them in, and even the opposition can do that, they have to appear. Except they are on the other side of the planet at the moment.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, and they have to answer these questions. We don't have it for long in Germany that the chancellor can be questioned. That we learned indeed from the PMQs, because part of it was probably because our government wanted to have it a little bit more entertaining, because PMQs is really entertaining, not very helpful, but entertaining. And that is something that parliament sessions usually lack. It's not very entertaining, not too many people are watching this. But of course, parliament should have more power in the UK. In a separation of powers is separation of powers.
I agree. I find it quite frustrating when I see a member of parliament ask Boris Johnson, for example, or another minister, an important question, and the Boris Johnson's approach, and I mentioned it. I normally mention it on the channel, how Boris Johnson's approach is first to ignore the question, ridicule the asker, the person asking the question, ignore the question, and then pontificate or finally ask for unity, the final insult in a sense. And I've seen how many MPs have turned that around and just used, okay, the Prime Minister or the Minister is not going to respond to my question, so I may as well just pontificate myself or grandstand or just use this as a platform to push my own agenda, which I don't think is helpful in democracy, but it's sort of understandable, because if the person on the other side is not going to listen to you and is not going to be challenged, because you have the Speaker of the House in the House of Commons who has very limited power, and Boris Johnson will not answer a question, for example, and he will not be challenged on that. And I think it's frustrating for people who want the question answered. And I think it's frustrating also for voters who, put someone there to ask questions on their behalf. That's, what an MP or a member of Parliament's job is, to represent the people of their town or village or constituency. And if they're not being responded, I find it, in a sense, it's insulting to the people themselves.
I just want to add something because you mentioned the speaker. There's one point where a long tradition can be disadvantageous because our parliament isn't that old. And our speaker of the parliament, it's called the president of the parliament in Germany, he is quite powerful. And I've seen him lecture the chancellor several times in parliament for her behavior, for example. I don't see it that often in the House of Commons, and especially not calling the prime minister to do something certain or to leave the room, for example, when they're disrespectful. Our president does that. He asked the chancellor to leave when she was chatting with someone else. Instead of listening, he kicked her out or asked her to leave when asked her to stop. The Rees-Mogg thing.
It seems yes,
never would have happened in Germany.
Yes. I think it's very important for people to look outside their own bubble. The bubble can also be your own country. Just look at how things are done in other countries, because we tend to think our way is probably the best way, but we have to compare it with other countries to get a better perspective. So Vic asks both of us, we were supposed to get rid of your sort on New Year's Day. What the F went wrong? So yeah. So if maybe Vic is not a Brexiteer, but he's channeling maybe the idea of Brexiteers that we should have disappeared on the 1st of January. Brexit Day was to see the end of both of our channels, for example. So what the hell happened?
Well, that was the one big thinking mistake of many Brexiteers on my channel as well, which I saw in the comments. They thought with January 1st, everything about Brexit is over. No, the fun is just getting started. All the consequences are just getting started. We talked about the consequences earlier. We will deal with the consequences of Brexit for a long time, especially the closest one, which is May, and the elections in Scotland, the development about Scottish independence. That's all a consequence of Brexit.
Why do you think that the Brexiteers think, or the general public think, that it's all going to end, or it has already ended?
Yeah, because they were told from as soon as we are out of this dictatorship EU, everything will be great. It's like in Germany we would say with the floating fried chicken in the air and stuff like that, and the golden apples on the trees. They believed the nonsense they were told. That was the whole problem of Brexit. And so they were told, as soon as we're completely out, everything will be great. Within a short time, we will be the greatest country, the richest country on this planet. That's not going to happen. And a lot of consequences will develop now. And we had a lot of stuff in our videos. If you look on both of our channels, the videos of the last 5 days, were a lot of topics just because of 1st of January that developed since then.
Yes. I think probably some of the most views on the channel have appeared in the last number of weeks because of the lead up to Brexit and after Brexit as well.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that may be our last question. So we'll jump to the super chats. So let me bring up the super chats if we can. Mark, if you have to leave, just let me know because...
it's all fine, all fine.
Okay. So let me see if I can bring it up here. Don't know if you guys can see it. Yes. So I'm going to try. Don't worry if you cannot see, because I'll try and read out the super chats that have come in most recently. Why is this not updated? Let me refresh. Because it's on. No, I'm having a problem with the. Oh no, it's I have a problem with the super. No, the super chats have come in, but the comments for the super chats have not seemed to update it to my my browser. Apologies for that. Okay. I had this problem.
Yeah,
before.
unfortunately,
No.
I can't help you because I
No,
didn't
no.
see any
No,
comments,
I
so
didn't
I
see
couldn't
any of the
scroll
chat.
up.
So, apologies for that. It did work before the last time I did it on the last live stream with Phil, but this time it didn't seem to work. I'll try and just go up through the chat quickly to try and read some of the super chats that may have appeared. Let's see. We had one. Good stuff, guys. This will be an interesting year. Yes, I think this will be an interesting year. That's from UK Verona. We have... I know there are other super chats. Where are they? No, I don't see any more. Apologies for that, guys. I can't see the super chats. They haven't. Normally they appear on my browser, but they haven't appeared this time. Apologies for that. Normally they appear immediately after. It may require the stream to go down. I'm not sure, but live events, no. No, I think we'll just have to stop it there. So, one moment, I bring up. Apologies for these. We have one here from Diarmid O'Riordan. Thank you both, Mark and Max, for your time. Almost 2 hours and very interesting. That's very good. I'm glad it was interesting. So I want to say a huge thank you to Mark for coming on the live stream tonight, and thanks to everyone for sending their super chats. Apologies I weren't able to read them out. There were so many of them as well. They were flying up on the screen. But they're going to a very worthy cause. Mark, would you just like to finish on just describing the charity once again for people maybe who have just appeared on the stream?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me tonight, Max. It was really a nice evening. And thank you for everyone who sent a super chat for the charity. It's a really good cause because it's the Funkies are Europe's largest inclusive dance ensemble. They're trying to bring together people with need with everybody else and just promote the idea of inclusion in the field of dance. And they just want to show that everyone, no matter in what condition you are, everybody together can have fun and can dance together, can perform together. We booked them in normal years with my carnival club, for example, and to see all the happy faces after they come off from stage, that they were loved by the audience, that they had fun on stage. That's so really great to see, and that's why I thank the people, the trainers, the chairman of the charity and so on for doing this. It's really great because I really love the joy in the face of all people taking part there. And so it's a really great charity. And thank you for all of you who helped them now that because of the pandemic, they are in trouble because they can't perform and make money like this for their charity. So thank you very much.
Yes, this has been a great support from all of you for doing this. Do check out the website after the moderators have posted it in the chat. So do check it out. So once again, thanks to everyone who's come on the stream tonight. Thank you all for participating, for all of your comments. We're over 1,000 viewers tonight. A huge thank you to Mark for doing this. Do check out his channel. He has amazing content, always every day uploading, and maybe although that may maybe go down a little bit when he gets when he gets a higher position. So thanks to everyone. Yes.
No, I just wanted to say it will take some time until the end of the pandemic. So
okay. One final super chat from Monkeytron. Good on you. Good on you. Thank you very much. So guys, once again, thanks to all the moderators. A fantastic job. We're going to end the stream here. So have a great night, and I'll see you all on Friday for a regular live stream at the usual same bat time, same bat channel, 9:30 Greenwich Mean Time. So have a great